Ready?
Where you
Let's do this. We'll call this special board meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. We have two items on the agenda for this evening. And the first one is the approval of the personnel report. I'll have a chance to see that. And I would entertain.
Like Hamlin is here if anybody needs
Oh,
additional
okay. Oh,
explanation,
perfect.
but if you don't, that's fine too.
Perfect. I would entertain a motion or
Madam Chair, I move to approve the personnel report.
Second, sorry.
so it's moved by trustee Keller and seconded by trustee Kip. Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, sorry. Excellent, approved unanimously. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the master contract. And I believe, yeah, I was like, where did Randy end up? Randy's here if you have questions. Greg is here.
Is on, I believe.
Myself, yes, I thought I did see Eric, yeah. So we are here if you have questions. Would entertain questions or a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the master contract as printed in the agenda.
I'll second.
Excellent, so it was moved by trustee Kip and seconded by trustee Keller. Any discussion? Questions?
Madam Chair, I just sent an email to the board. We collected some information. Trustee Ross asked us to provide the fund codes for how we're paying for it. It's very similar to what we discussed a couple of weeks ago. I outlined, so I will review it here. We received an additional $767,000 from the state in salary-based apportionment. We're going to spend 921, little over that, which is a deficit of 153,000. And then I mentioned four sources that could come from. Number one, we still have additional salary-based apportionment that will come our way when we finalize the tier 3 placements. It's likely actually to come pretty close to that. We also have carryover from last year. We have ESSER funds. And then if FT changes, so if we collect more than 640 units, then that would also be a generator. So we have 4 options at our disposal. The other amount, the one-time stipend for our veteran teachers of $628,000, this is $200,000 for those that didn't get to step down. That comes totally from one-time carryover money. So one-time expense, one-time money.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the master contract. Any other discussion or questions?
Thank you for that. And I just sat in and listened to you on your 153. So thank you for that. And I think I had on that 153, just to clarify, and I'm just doing my best to be fiscally responsible because I want to verify that it's not a deficit that we're going to have at the end of this balanced budget school year that we've already done. Because you mentioned there's 4 multiple buckets that could be pulled from. When you say the FTE changes, is there a certain date or time that we're going to know when those come to fruition and have an idea what that is?
So if the state changes nothing, we won't really, let's see, we'll settle that when FTE, because now we're talking this year.
So all of this that we're talking about right now is all related to this year.
Yes.
The way it works right now is we have, the state has given us our numbers, but they don't true up officially until July. So the numbers that we have are
pretty close.
are pretty close to where we are. The average salaries and all that kind of stuff will stay the way it is. So I'm not worried that the 700,000 that we said we're gonna get from the state is good. The one we're waiting for, like I said, is the third tier. It'll take up potentially most of that $150,000 negative that we think we'll have, because it's $2,000 a person. So,
I guess out of the 4 buckets that I'm hearing, the FTE changes, we're not really gonna know, and those aren't gonna come to July. So maybe it wouldn't be a pertinent or best idea to say we might take it out of that, just for casual speaking. The salary based on that 3-tier, I haven't been following super well in, but I'm hearing that the current legislative right now, like you say, is they're still going through, are trying to give labels to how they want us to spend that 3rd tier. Is that accurate? Am I reading the news right in what they're doing with that?
Are you saying ESER 3? You
Yes.
mean third
No.
tier?
Yes.
I think there's difference with that.
Yeah.
So
So
the,
I'm referring to the third tier of the career ladder when I say that. I'm
Yes.
not
Okay.
referring to ESER 3.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Does that
that's,
clarify that?
It does, and remind me, because I think we, as a board, we made a resolution at the beginning of the year to ask them to, when they were in their freeze, to help us maintain that ladder. And so it sounds like even with this motion that's on the floor today, we're not only getting that movement in the ladder that we asked for, but even the funds that would go with it in this current year, let alone having to wait the next year, which we thought was the scenario we were in.
All
Is
of
that
the
accurate?
spreadsheets we have seen
Okay,
would agree with you.
okay,
so one thing I want to remind everybody about, this has nothing to do with next year, everything to do with this year. So the only reason this happened right now is because the governor changed his mind on how they wanted to actually allocate his 5% holdback. And decided it was easier fight to just put it against their discretionary and then give the career ladder movement back.
Mhm.
So with that career ladder, we're talking about everything this year. So basically what we're doing is like we would have done it every year had we not had the holdback. We would have basically given every bit that we got from the career ladder to the teachers. And that's kind of what we're doing now. It just happens to be this late in the game. But reality is it's not different than what we do every single year for negotiations. It just happens, this is just a COVID year.
agreed. And I think we would have known that, we would have accounted for that in our budget. We would have known that they reimburse the 750, but that we would have known because of NAMPA and who we are and who we have out there, it's more like 900. And that's where I'm just trying to close this gap and get a good understanding of this 150 extra. Because we would have done that at the budget stage is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so the only difference this year is typically when we're doing this with the negotiation, it's all theoretical. Because we don't know what our true makeup of our staff are gonna be when we're ending one year. And so everything's theoretically, we hope our average teacher salary comes in and that, we know what it is now. We have the employees, so I know for a fact how much it is, it's a number.
Yeah.
So in prior years, the balance that we actually had could have been up or down. You've seen other years when I've actually come in and said, hey, our average teacher's down, so we think we're gonna be about $200,000 low. Not a big deal because our units are high. I come in and do that every single year, right around, usually around November when that
And we have
happens.
that opportunity to adjust mid-year if we've projected one way or the other to a small degree
We have contracts, yeah, it's hard to adjust.
in different ways. And so, so I'll get to, because we're at the 11th hour, right? Kind of at the end. So I'm just really trying to firm up that fiscal responsibility of this extra 153 and then say, so if we are using carryover for sure for the one-time funds down below, but we may still have some extra carryover, how much extra carryover is left?
So let me take a stab first of all. So what's difficult here is that ESER 1 and ESER 2 can supplant. So as we, for example, pay the custodial contract out of ESER 1, that normally would have been out of general fund. So now that becomes a carryover piece that wasn't there. So that's a really difficult question to answer at this time because Randy hasn't gone through all of our accounts We want to spend out of the account that is the most restrictive first, so that we leave the district with as much flexibility in other places.
Perfect. And I agree with you. And I don't think in this conversation, I'm looking to kind of pin you down that it has to come out of a certain, I think I'm just trying to get a general sense of where it will be, how much is in those accounts. Is it that we have, and I don't know the answer to this question. That's what I'm saying is it where we're putting 4 in because we might have to take a little bit out of each one because they don't all have enough in there?
No.
Is it that each one has plenty and we're still waiting? Is it that all of these 4 that you've given us options to have, I don't know what that number is, 700 in it, and we're just talking about 150 to figure out? I think that would help.
In last year's carryover, we have a really decent, full, robust balance because we've been able to substitute with some ESSER funds.
So if you guys remember right, remember when we were talking about the potential deficit before? I mean, there was many months that we came back and said, remember, we might be down because our ADA is down. And here's how we're gonna pay for it. Remember, we had 2 buckets. We had carryover from last year that we had some federal funds that we were able to use that, right, we had that $1 million set aside initially. So we were looking at, we might have had to cover about $3 million, $3.5 million, depending on what our ADA was, right? Well, the state then changed that and said, we're not gonna go on strict ADA, we're gonna go on average daily enrollment. What that did was that made it so that $3 million loss that we thought we were potentially gonna have no longer was there, okay? And then they changed again when the governor said, okay, we're gonna do this career ladder thing again, and then we're gonna change your discretionary, which then dropped us back down again, okay? The difference is though, if it was any given year that we didn't have these ESSER funds as the backdrop, and that's why the state did this discretionary thing, because they know we have this stuff. And NAMPA's in the best position of probably anybody because of our free and reduced lunch status. We get more than, we almost get as much as like West Data and Boise. It's ridiculous in some lines. But we have that backdrop, so there's no risk whatsoever at the district at this point in time for any kind of funding. And we've had it covered for months and months and months. Things change, we shift, but we're still covered. Nothing's changed. The only difference with this is that, yes, there's the potential of the 153, but again, the 3rd tier is going to take up a chunk of that as well. But we got new money from the state that we're just basically sending back out. And the only difference too is the $2,000 longevity that we are paying out of carry forward because it was $600,000
Of one-time investment.
of one-time money. So one-time.
And that's easy for me, right? Because I know, because, and
One time,
that was my
one
question.
time.
My question was, can you just remind me what the dollar amounts are that we want to approve tonight? And can you let me know which buckets we want to pull those out of? And so I'm really just trying to get to the answer of which buckets are we pulling out of and how much is in those buckets so that I feel good that the money's there in the bucket. It's not, the money will eventually be in this bucket in July, because, right, I don't want to have anybody be in the position. And that's why I'm trying to just be forthright in asking the questions now to say, hey, are we spending tonight money that we think is coming in July? Or are we spending money tonight that we know we have in the buckets? And that's really just the plain and simple question I was trying to understand.
Do you feel like you have your answer? The money is in the bucket.
I feel like the money for the carryover and the ESSER is in the bucket right now that we have, and the 3rd tier in the FTE is money to come in some buckets, but we don't need those buckets if we, because of the first 2 have enough. Does that sound right of what I heard tonight?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just want to
Although we'll
remind,
spend it differently than that.
yeah.
But you've got
yeah.
that opportunity to play with that. I just know there's enough in the buckets tonight for what you're asking of us.
Well, and remember, because of the way that we are funded in a normal, completely normal year, and the way funding comes in, that's part of why we have set, like, this is our, now I lost the word, our like contingency fund that we want to have this in reserve because we got to pay and that check hasn't come in yet till July. So we still have to keep paying, and most of those payments are salary payments and things like that. So that is typical how we operate, so it's not super unusual that we don't have that funding. Does that make sense until
In a
July?
normal year, I'm totally with you. With all these extra funds that things were
Yeah.
coming out of, I was a little
Yeah.
confused and that's why I'm like, just help me verify what we're pulling
And
from.
this is
and
the
who we
first
got
year
it.
that will be funded for tier 3.
Yeah,
So it's a very new expense. It's really difficult for our revenue source. So we kind of know, but it's the first year. So we don't really have the history to lay back on and say, this is what generally happens because it hasn't ever happened before.
Agreed. And so thank you for answering all those questions as I just work through that financial stuff.
any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I think I heard all of us, so there, yep, perfect. Passed unanimously.
Chairman Simpson, I just, so thank you. This will be very exciting. Just want you to know that we have a team that will start tomorrow morning with an amazing, huge curriculum task, right? And Randy's department, Gwen's department, there's a lot of work to accomplish here. Just to remind you and those who are listening, we will attempt to correct the difference in salary in one opportunity in April. And then after April, the salaries will normalize like they should have been getting all the way along. So you will realize there's a lot of work to check and double check and make sure that we have everything in line. So they are prepared and ready to go and they'll be working really hard until checks are issued at the end of this month.
That's exciting
Excellent. Thank you.
for everybody.
So we will adjourn the special meeting. And we have 3 minutes